C'est un robot humanoïde qu'on a conçu à base de tous les trucs qu'on a récupérés dans les composants électroniques, du carton, des fils d'aluminium, tout ce que l'on a utilisé et puis on a jeté. Présente-toi.
Je m'appelle Mama Africa. Je suis un robot humanoïde.
Comme tout robot, Mama Africa a besoin d'une connexion Internet à haut débit pour faire fonctionner son algorithme. Jusqu'à récemment, des innovations de ce type étaient limitées dans leur développement par la faiblesse du débit Internet.
On peut maintenant mettre en ligne, Mama Africa en réseau sur Internet pour que même là où tu es, quel que soit le point de la planète que tu te trouves, tu peux interagir avec Mama Africa. Ce sera grâce à la fibre optique.
Avec un financement de 33 millions d'euros, la Banque africaine de développement et l'Union européenne ont contribué à connecter la République centrafricaine à l'Internet haut débit. Grâce à plus de 900 km de câbles en fibre optique, le pays est dorénavant relié à ses voisins, le Cameroun et le Congo. Avec la fibre optique, le débit a été multiplié par 3, de 3 gigabits par seconde à 10. Ce n'est qu'un début. À l'université de Bangui, un incubateur leur est désormais dédié pour apprendre à exploiter le potentiel de la fibre optique et concrétiser leurs idées.
Ce que je suis en train de dessiner ici, c'est un tracteur solaire. J'ai vu les gens en train de cultiver à la main. Pourquoi pas inventer quelque chose en solaire? Parce que là-bas, il n'y a pas le carburant, il n'y a pas l'électricité aussi. Mais le soleil brille partout.
Le message fort que l'homme doit retenir de mes propos, c'est que l'humanité doit agir maintenant pour sauver demain.
Ah ouais, ça tu as raison. Je vais faire de grandes choses avec Mama Africa. Je pense que ça sera bien.
Ethiopia has a big potential in hydropower because our landscape is a mountain area. So by using those natural resources, we can produce hydropower energy. We have a potential also to supply East African countries.
Approximately in 2010, countries in the East African region decided that it's very important to have an interconnected system so that all countries can use and harness energy and be able to support each other. So there was the need to put up the line.
So why we use this system is to minimize the power loss, also to minimize the transmission construction costs. Also, it is very easy to operate from different countries' grids.
So we get advantage in such a way that the power that is sent from Ethiopia and what
whole studies and the concept to bring an interconnected system was actually driven by African Development Bank. It enables countries to have a good energy mix. So a lot of hydros from our two neighboring countries, a lot of geothermal in Kenya, wind energy that we can share to support each other. This enables our countries to think much bigger in terms of what is our capacity in terms of industries and manufacturing and mining.
We also have benefit of attracting investors, especially in heavy industries and light industries, who, first of all, their moral foundation is on clean energy, and also it is cheaper. As they do that, they create employment. They also improve their livelihood through being able to feed their families and also educate their children and live a better life.
I'm Masai, so I'm a native of here. So it's actually giving back to my community, and it shows being an engineer is possible as a woman. And also you can work as a mother and an engineer, because I'm a new mom. So I've shown it that it's actually possible being a family and also a professional.
Depuis que j'ai commencé par travailler, je travaille toujours dans l'obscurité. C'est ici que j'ai commencé par travailler dans la lumière.
L'accès à l'énergie est un enjeu clé pour de nombreux pays du continent africain dans l'atteinte des objectifs du développement durable. Depuis 2018, le Togo s'est engagé à garantir l'accès universel à l'électricité d'ici 2030. Dans ce cadre, le projet Pravost, soutenu par la Banque africaine de développement, apporte des solutions solaires durables pour électrifier les zones rurales isolées.
Le projet Pravost est orienté vers les communautés qui n'ont pas accès au réseau électrique national.
Grâce à l'électrification d'infrastructures communautaires et d'exploitations agricoles, le projet améliore la vie de près de 600 000 personnes dans 500 localités. En modernisant l'agriculture avec des solutions innovantes, il renforce la résilience face au changement climatique tout en promouvant une énergie propre et durable.
Mon élevage est constitué de volailles, de porcs et après le maraîchage. Pour irriguer le champ, au début, j'utilisais motopompe. Avec augmentation du prix du carburant, j'ai laissé et puis j'utilisais pompe électrique. Avec le paiement d'électricité, ça coûte plus cher plus que panneaux solaires.
Le choix du solaire a été fait parce qu'une énergie propre, renouvelable et accessible, donc ça répond aux enjeux climatiques.
Quand il ne pleut pas, il y a trop de chaleur, je stocke l'eau pour arroser.
Face au défi du changement climatique, le projet Pravost propose une réponse concrète. Des panneaux solaires alimentent une pompe immergée qui remplit un réservoir de 5000 litres relié à un réseau de distribution d'eau pour l'élevage et le maraîchage. 600 pompes solaires d'irrigation ont été distribuées sur la zone du projet.
Avec l'arrivée du panneau solaire Pravost, il y a beaucoup de changements. J'ai augmenté la surface de production de 50%. Le rendement aussi a augmenté de 50%. Plus j'augmente la superficie, plus j'aurai besoin de main-d'œuvre. Donc, dans l'avenir, c'est une solution pour encore développer l'économie autour de moi.
Sur les marchés locaux, comme celui de la ville d'Afagnan, une agriculture plus résiliente contribue également à répondre à une demande toujours plus grande en produits frais. L'impact de l'électrification rurale sur la population se fait aussi sentir dans le domaine de la santé. Pas moins de 314 centres de santé hors réseau ont bénéficié d'un accès à l'énergie solaire dans le cadre du projet.
Les gens souffraient dans mon village, il n'y avait pas de case de santé. Bon, lorsque j'ai commencé par travailler, j'ai préféré de faire la santé pour aider ma population. Je suis dans mes 29e année de service. Avant, on utilisait la lampe et la torche pour travailler. On tient la torche au cou ou bien avec la bouche et parfois tu piques tes doigts ou bien tu n'arrives pas à prendre les veines pour les patients. On ne voit pas bien. Avant, dans l'obscurité, j'ai évacué une femme enceinte et au chemin faisant, la dame était décédée avant d'arriver à Afagnan. Maintenant, ça n'est plus arrivé. Compte tenu du projet Pravost, on nous a installé les lumières. Maintenant, on voit clair. On travaille sans problème. C'est 6 panneaux qu'on nous a donnés avec les ampoules dans toutes les chambres, avec le réfrigérateur homologué pour stocker les vaccins et en plus un réfrigérateur pour conserver les produits de maternité.
Avant l'intervention du projet Pravost, de nombreux centres de santé comme celui de Victorine étaient contraints de fonctionner sans électricité, mais aussi sans eau chaude. Une problématique que le projet a pris à bras-le-corps en équipant 122 centres de santé en chauffe-eau solaire, permettant d'assurer une hygiène adéquate et de garantir des soins sécurisés. Une étape majeure dans la modernisation de ces centres de santé ruraux vient d'être franchie, ouvrant la voie à un accès durable à l'énergie pour les services aux populations éloignées du réseau électrique.
L'un des défis avec les projets solaires, donc c'est la durabilité et la maintenance dans le temps. Nous avons prévu l'accompagnement des bénéficiaires, être vraiment auprès des populations pour que les impacts soient durables.
We believe that Africa will be the Silicon Valley of tomorrow. My name is Yahya Bohlel. I'm 26 years old. I am CEO and co-founder of GoMyCode. What we do as GoMyCode is we operate a learning technology company, one of the largest learning technology companies in the continent that train people on digital skills. These programs can be from 40 hours to 80 hours to 400 hours of teacher-led training, so around data science, digital marketing, design. So actually when we started the company, we were only 3 people in the company, and we only had 5 teachers, and we started with 1 city and 1 location in Tunisia. And from there actually we went and expanded to a team of over 800 people today. Now it's more a Pan-African platform operating in North Africa, West Africa and East Africa. And we actually went from a company generating a few thousand USD to generating over 4 million of annualized revenue right now.
GoMyCode aims to transform the lives of young Tunisians who have the desire and ideas but don't have the opportunity to train. Since 2017, the startup has trained over 30,000 students. Among other companies, GoMyCode has been financed by the African Development Bank Group and the European Union through the Pan-African investment platform, AfriCinvest. The goal is to unleash the potential of innovative African startups. Betting on young people who dare, undertake and create value is the bank's and the European Union's ambition.
Okay, so my name is Kusaya Shirni. I'm 25 years old and I'm an entrepreneur, the founder and CEO of Guépard. Guépard is the fastest animal on earth, and we want the next highways of data to be as fast and efficient as possible. So in 2019, I discovered GoMyCode with their AI training. I followed the training, and later on in 2021, I joined GoMyCode as their country launcher for Morocco. I learned the soft skills necessary to scale and manage a business, and combined with my passion for mathematics, technology, and all that stuff, is actually what makes us today tech entrepreneurs and be able to scale businesses based on complex products. The fact that Yahya trusted me with this responsibility gave me the confidence and the trust to actually build my own ideas and pursue my own ventures. I've been always passionate about math, and coding is basically another language based on math. And the fact that I could automate things and make them work by themselves is actually where I get my dopamine.
Thanks to the exponential demand for these new training courses, GoMyCode has expanded much more ambitiously. The startup is now present in 9 countries worldwide. GoMyCode has been supported by the African Development Bank Group and the European Union as part of the Boost Africa project.
We believe that Africa holds the potential. When you look at the numbers, there are 2 countries today in the continent in Africa that comes with the highest concentration of developers per million per capita, which is Tunisia and Morocco. So Tunisia is really positioned at a really good place to produce high-skilled talent and high-skilled profile that can really operate in this global economy and not just a local economy. And that's a really exciting idea for us.
So we started almost 1 year ago with only 3,000 euros as a start. Today we already raised over 150K, and we have more than 10 employees working with us. And now we're raising an exciting 2.5 million for our seed round next year.
Yahya and Koutier are the faces of the young Africans who are taking action today to create a better tomorrow and position Tunisia as a future African leader in the deep tech sector.
We believe that all together we are making a difference.
Tapitang harano na nyo ni ana kwa renya za ka dinga gipi to riya muna bani ko guda ke dia ka kin me ko ri anga lupu no hara no kwa e yang lupu anya kile eta e chwa ngo yo kwa yo nya beru ani ya nya ke mojudang ai te kidi na ya gara ne ge e elala mere mono ya nya ngolola ngoli gini ya nya kiruga pete nya ngolol nak di jang kito ni bere anyu ne ra
Kotido in Uganda's Karamoja sub-region stands among the country's most climate vulnerable regions, facing relentless droughts, floods, and rising temperatures. Communities are taking the lead through Greening Kotido, a locally driven initiative spearheaded by the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, with support from the African Development Bank. By addressing local vulnerabilities and elevating the voices of those most affected, the project integrates land rights, climate resilience, and gender justice, bringing climate action directly to the people who feel its impact the most.
IGAD did not decide that it should be a tree initiative. They proposed that they need to be supported because they understand the advantage of planting trees. We've supported in line with their demands and the requests of the communities. It was by design that we address climate change challenges from a gender point of view.
Okay, just ask everybody to take their seats.
Mesdames et messieurs, nous vous invitons à prendre place. La cérémonie d'ouverture officielle va bientôt commencer. Ladies and gentlemen, we kindly invite you to take your seats. The ceremony is about to start. Thank you.
Okay, you can turn on mic.
Atemar, tapalik niya giyepen kito kana bo kipitan kito. Abe koye ya kare na berdaha pedori ya malu. Na budi na abida kita bang na to joy kya. Tolo group atoli mo kinka. Aka group na to mari azia Yak pitin kito yayi. Yak gitareng dia yayi. Kotere tore unere wani ne pitela nya koro nya wo inte na kwa pao.
If the network of persons who have bought into this idea is enlarged, the tree planting is going to become a mega happening within my locality and it will change the face of the environment. Now, with the knowledge that trees attract rainfall, I am very sure that we're going to have a smaller...
Ladies and gentlemen, if you do not have an assigned seat or are still in the corridors, the ceremony will be broadcast in overflow rooms in the Majestic and in the Batinois in Bouaké.
$470,000. The Enhancing Gender Equality in Access to Land Resources for Transformative Climate Change Adaptation in the IGAD Region project is driving change across Uganda, Kenya, and Djibouti. From land access to gender equality, this initiative is designed around real needs, real voices. Women, often left out, are now fully engaged, consulted, and heard. Government leads the process. Communities drive the change. IGAD facilitates and supports.
We have been trying as government to make sure that we reverse the trend, but in a very small manner because the adverse effects of climate change were already biting the population. This project is going to add value to the greening plan we had for Kotido municipality. The future of Kotido is moving towards sustainable development, where we have grass, where we have trees flourishing, and we shall have rain. Hence, we have water and we have pastures for our animals. The issue of fighting for resources sooner than later because of this project will be history.
All the adaptation, approved practices and technologies must take place on land. We have the land use plan and it is under review, and Parliament is going to take part in the subsequent review of the policy. We have also been legislating and ensuring that some of these actions do get budgets, especially in the land governance sector.
Through the rationale of the project that was proposed by IGAD, the African Development Bank, through the Africa Climate Change Fund, agreed to fund this particular project. And we think that through the initiatives that have been in place so far, it is going to make an impact in the long run.
Greening Kotido municipality is more than a local success. It's generating real impact and valuable lessons that can be scaled across borders. It reflects IGAD's broader commitment, taking regional action to the grassroots. Beyond policy, beyond capacity building, this is about real change on the ground.
Very happiness pan here bridge was meeting pinda valley even my borders my tomba I gono kungopinda yano gono kungopinda chain ndogadzira zvigayo noita welding and fabrication chinjini yama dihala ma grinding mills maluka sawmills saka taane kwanisa kuita consistent supply ne mass production pakugadzira kuita zvinhu zvedu.
Undertook a comprehensive assessment to design the infrastructure, ensuring it is sustainable and effective.
Mvura yedu kana iripo yainonoka kusvika kumunda asi izvozvi yakukasika kusvika nekuda kuti mugero wakagadzira.
Mvura taichera kurwizi taipedza kana 1 hour kana kuti 30 minutes uchienda unochera mvura, asi zvinezvi uno hatisina mukana wekuchaenda kotwara chinyi mvura taanayo.
When it comes to also
Mesdames et messieurs, nous vous invitons à prendre place. Merci de prendre place, s'il vous plaît. La cérémonie commence dans quelques instants. Ladies and gentlemen, we kindly invite you to take your seats. The ceremony is about to start. Please take your seats. Thank you very much.
This initiative demonstrates how targeted infrastructure investments can transform communities.
Hello. Hello. Could you please take your seats? Please take your seats. We're about to start. Please take your seats. Please take your seats. please take your seats? We're about to start. Okay. Can you please rise as we welcome the heads of state? You may be seated.
نعمل البي مش ضوء لا ها هوك
Thank you very much. His Excellency, Mr. Alassane Ouattara, President of the Republic of Cote d'Ivoire and host of this year's annual meetings. His Excellency, Mr. Azali Assoumani, President of the Union of the Comoros. His Excellency, Mr. John Dramani Mahama, President of the Republic of Ghana. His Excellency, Dr. Philip Isdor Mpango, Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania, representing Her Excellency, Dr. Mrs. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania. His Excellency, Mr. Ndaba Nkosinati Haolote, Vice President of the Republic of Botswana and Minister of Finance of Botswana and Governor for the African Development Bank. His Excellency, Mr. Lamin Zain Ali Mahaman, Prime Minister and Minister of Economy and Finance of the Republic of Niger and Governor for the African Development Bank. Your Excellency, Mr. Joachim Chissano, former President of the Republic of Mozambique. Honorable Mrs. Nyale Kaba, Minister of Economy, Planning and Development of the Republic of Cote d'Ivoire and Chairperson of the Board of Governors. Dr. Akinwumi A. Adesina, President of the African Development Bank Group. Honorable Governors of the African Development Bank Group, alternate governors of the African Development Bank Group, heads of institutions, and other senior officials of the Republic of Cote d'Ivoire, heads of regional economic communities and financial institutions, members of the diplomatic corps, executive directors of the African Development Bank Group, senior management and staff of the bank group, media houses, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start, may we please give a round of applause to the group that just performed this wonderful dance. That was the Akwaba Journey to the Hearts of the Riches of Cote d'Ivoire. The group is the National Ballet of Cote d'Ivoire under the direction of renowned choreographer Georges Momboye. Their performance invites you on a marvelous journey to the heart of traditional riches and new dynamic and creative and luminous culture full of hope, like Akwaba. Akwaba, a unique artistic experience that highlights the beauty and riches of Cote d'Ivoire, a true burst of color and rhythm. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Vincent Mehele, Secretary General of the African Development Bank Group, and I will be facilitating the opening ceremony. It is my singular honor to welcome you to the 2025 annual meetings of the Boards of Governors of the African Development Bank and the African Development Fund in this beautiful city of Abidjan, also known and fondly called Pearl de Lagoon, Pearl of Lagoons, Cote d'Ivoire. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, on this auspicious occasion of the annual meetings, our shareholders meet once again to take stock of the bank's group's activities and performance and make decisions that chart the way for the bank group. I'd like to express our profound gratitude to you all for kindly and favorably responding to our invitation. There's a lot in store for everyone during this week, as you will notice from the lineup of knowledge events, numerous side events, and hospitality events. Indeed, Cote d'Ivoire, our host and headquarters country, has prepared a lot of activities for you, our esteemed guests, as displayed from the colorful and wonderful cultural performance, and of course, the reception last night. Ladies and gentlemen, before we delve into the heart of the event, allow me to convey our deepest and sincere appreciation to the Honorable Ms. Nyale Kaba, Minister of Economy, Planning and Development, AFDB Governor, and Chairperson of the Boards of Governors for her sterling work Madam, not yet. For her stellar for her sterling work and dedication during her tenure at the helm of the bank group's highest decision-making body, and for ensuring that Côte d'Ivoire, as host, held nothing back in ensuring that we had a very successful annual meetings. Honorable Governor, we thank you and appreciate your relentless efforts and great support. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this year's annual meeting, Making Africa's Capital Work Better for Africa's Development, speaks volumes. It is therefore our hope that the deliberations will provide answers to the difficult questions embedded in the theme. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, I'd like to present the program of the opening ceremony. We will have a video, which is the opening video, and then we'll have a welcome message from the chairperson of the Board of Governors, Madam Nyale Kaba. And then we will hear a video tribute from Mr. Antonio Guterres, United Nations Secretary General, to be followed by the keynote speech of Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, President of the Bank, after which we will play the host country video, and then the opening remarks of His Excellency, the President. I'd like to introduce the 2025 annual meetings video. Please play the video.
Le groupe de la Banque africaine de développement, votre banque, change la vie quotidienne de millions d'Africains. Innovant, résistant et avec de l'impact. Les 10 dernières années ont été marquées par des actions audacieuses et des transformations remarquables, visant à bâtir une Afrique encore plus forte, en tirant parti de ses immenses ressources et de son potentiel. Des terres agricoles fertiles et de riches gisements miniers, un peuple travailleur et résilient, nos vastes ressources naturelles, une énergie propre et abondante.
The continent of Africa is endowed with a lot of resources. First of all, we are getting enough sun than any other continent, I think. We have water, very big rivers. We have waterfalls that we could be able to put hydropowers, but we have also geothermal. If they're used properly, they could power the whole continent.
Les jeunes Africains dynamiques, diplômés et créatifs sont les architectes qui construisent et façonnent l'avenir de notre continent.
In an aging world, Africa's growing young population offers the workforce and markets of tomorrow.
Nos outils financiers et nos ressources en investissement fondent notre croissance. Nos réseaux d'échange, nos coopérations régionales, notre soft power connectent l'Afrique à elle-même et la connectent au monde.
There are wonderful opportunities in Africa, but we're going to have to do a lot more and a lot more together to realize the promise of bringing the kinds of private sector funds that Africa deserves.
Trop souvent, le capital de l'Afrique travaille davantage pour les autres que pour l'Afrique. Mais nous pouvons faire la différence et changer l'histoire. La réponse est ici, chez nous, en nous. Elle est dans nos sols, dans nos forêts, dans nos banques, au cœur de notre population.
It is we who shall forge the manner in which we cooperate, integrate, and invest, rather than simply being victims of a past history.
And we will keep pressing together for an international financial architecture that is no longer outdated, dysfunctional, and unfair.
Cela signifie réformer nos institutions, mobiliser davantage nos ressources domestiques et instaurer la confiance dans nos systèmes financiers.
Africa must chart its future, relying not on benevolence of others, but on its own self-determination of self-reliance, building reliable alliances, leveraging opportunities in this global dynamics while putting Africa first. Only then will Africa be great again. And let's make that happen.
Bienvenue aux Assemblées annuelles 2025 du groupe de la Banque africaine de développement. Ensemble, faisons en sorte que le capital de l'Afrique travaille mieux, plus intelligemment et favorise le développement de l'Afrique.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my honor to call upon Honorable Mrs. Nyale Kaba, Minister of Economy, Planning and Development, Governor of the African Development Bank for the Republic of Cote d'Ivoire, and Chairperson of the Boards of Governors to deliver her welcome statement. Madam.
I'm pleased to join all of you as the African Development Bank gathers to honor our President.
Excellent.
Your Excellency, Mr. Alassane Ouattara, President of the Republic of Cote d'Ivoire, Your Excellency, Mr. Azali Assoumani, President of the Union of the Comoros, Your Excellency, Mr. John Dramani Mahama, President of the Republic of Ghana, Your Excellency, Dr. Philip Isidore Mpango, Vice President, representing Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Your Excellency, Mr. Ndaba Haulate, Vice President and Minister of the Economy and Finance of Botswana, Your Excellency, Mr. Ali Alamin Zain, Prime Minister and Minister of the Economy and Finance of the Republic of Niger, Your Excellency, Mr. Joachim Chissano, former President of the Republic of Mozambique, Mr. Prime Minister, Head of Government of Cote d'Ivoire, distinguished heads of institutions of Cote d'Ivoire, Honorable Governors of the Africa Development Bank Group, the President of the Africa Development Bank Group, Honorable Members of Government of Cote d'Ivoire, distinguished representatives of international organizations, Your Excellencies, ambassadors and distinguished representatives of the diplomatic corps, members of senior management of the African Development Bank, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen of the media, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. It is with immense delight and profound joy that I take the floor to welcome you to Abidjan, to the 2025 edition of the annual meetings of the Africa Development Bank Group. Akwaba, welcome, bienvenue. Pending the same message from a more authorized voice, Cote d'Ivoire is particularly honored and proud to once again play host to this groundbreaking event here in the host country of the headquarters of the bank. This testifies to the utmost trust, fraternity, and attachment to our home. And in this respect, let me convey my deep-seated gratitude to the President of the Republic, Mr. Alassane Ouattara, whose unstinting support has made it possible to provide support, efficient support to every step of the preparation of this ceremony. Mr. President, sir, thank you for this commitment at the service of Africa. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, these annual meetings are taking place against a global backdrop which is characterized by a myriad of disruptions and uncertainties, and as such, Africa has no other choice than to get together around its strongest institutions. The African Development Bank, by its Pan-African vision and commitment towards the structural transformation of the continent, positions itself at the very heart of this dynamics. And the theme for this year, which is to make Africa's capital work better for Africa's development, reminds us that Africa is replete with natural and cultural capital and exceptional demographic potential, which should very quickly transform into shared prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, this year's edition is of particular importance because it will also see the election of a new president at the helm of this institution. And in this respect, allow me to commend the leadership of Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, outgoing president, who over the past decade has really provided the much needed boost, remarkably so, to the bank by a number of transformational initiatives and by the resolute defense of Africa's interests in the international stage. Thank you. Thank you, President Adesina, for your exceptional commitment to be at the service of the continent of Africa. My thanks also to all bank staff for the work done. Allow me also to congratulate and warmly thank the organizing committee for the commitment, professionalism, and availability, which have contributed a great deal to the smooth conduct of this edition. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the annual meetings of the bank are not only an institutional framework, but also the ideal moment for us to chart the future of our continent. And in my capacity as chair of the Board of Governors this year, I will invite each and every one of us to enhance our collective dialogue on Africa's priorities, to consolidate strategic partnerships between our countries and the bank, and to build an ambitious vision which hinges on excellence, innovation, and integration. And to conclude, allow me to reiterate our utmost recognition and acknowledgement to His Excellency President Alassane Ouattara, to all heads of state and government, as well as all the senior personalities present in this room for their presence, which gives another importance to this ceremony. And I thank you for your kind attention.
Please put your hands together for the chairperson for such an insightful welcome remarks. From the words of the chairperson, I would like to transition to the video message from Mr. Antonio Guterres, United Nations Secretary General.
Excellencies, I'm pleased to join all of you as the African Development Bank gathers to honor your president, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina. Dear Dr. Adesina Akin, your vision and dedication to just and sustainable development have changed countless lives across Africa. You set a bold course to help shape the continent for the better through your High Fives agenda, powering, feeding, industrializing, integrating Africa, and improving the quality of life. As president of the African Development Bank, you tripled the bank's capital base, led responses to urgent crises, including COVID-19, while advancing long-term solutions from clean energy to climate-resilient agriculture. And your leadership on special drawing rights has opened new avenues in financing for development. This is essential to support countries facing crushing debt, climate shocks, and limited fiscal space. Your advocacy was instrumental in securing their rechanneling through multilateral development banks, helping direct and use global resources where they are most needed. The United Nations thanks you and looks forward to building on your remarkable record in the years ahead. Once again, Akin, thank you for all you have done to advance inclusive development, full progress on the Sustainable Development Goals and the African Union's Agenda 2063, and build a more fair and just financial system for all. I'm pleased to join all of you as the African Development Bank.
Thank you. From that message from the Secretary General of the United Nations, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the President of the African Development Bank Group and the Chairman of the Board of Directors of the Bank Group, Dr. Akiwumi A. Adesina, to deliver his keynote speech.
And gathers to honor your president.
Your Excellency, Mr. Alassane Ouattara, President of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, Your Excellency, Mr. Azali Assoumani, President of the Union of the Comoros, Your Excellency, John Mahama, President of the Republic of Ghana, Your Excellency, Dr. Philip Isdor Banko, Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania, representing Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Your Excellency Mr. Ndaba Kusinati Golwate, Vice President of the Republic of Botswana, Your Excellency Mr. Robert Brick Mambe, Prime Minister of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, Your Excellency Ali Mahaman Lamine Zain, Prime Minister of the Republic of Niger, Excellency Joachim Chissano, former President of the Republic of Mozambique, Your Excellencies, ambassadors, and heads of diplomatic missions, as well as international organizations, the President of the Senate of Côte d'Ivoire, Mr. Adama Bitogo, President of the National Assembly of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, my dear friend and sister, whom I call the quiet giant, Minister Nyale Kaba, Minister of the Economy and Planning, she is really silent, quiet, and Development of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, President of the boards of governors of the African Development Bank Group, distinguished ministers and senior officials of Côte d'Ivoire, the executive directors of the African Development Bank Group, the senior management and staff of the African Development Bank Group, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and I cannot be here today without my beautiful and gracious Grace. What would I do without Grace? Welcome to the 2025 annual meetings of the African Development Bank Group. I would like to thank His Excellency Mr. Alassane Ouattara, my dear big brother and host, for being in our midst here today. I would also like to thank all the heads of state and government, as well as their representatives, who have honored us by their presence. I am deeply grateful, Your Excellencies, for having found the time to be here today and for the unwavering trust and personal support that you have lent to me over the last 10 years at the helm of the African Development Bank Group. And I'm so thankful. This would be my last annual meeting in my capacity as president of the African Development Bank Group. It is a time of reflection to take stock over the 10 years of my tenure. It's also an opportunity to publicly deliver an account for the mandate that you collectively entrusted me.
So I have so much joy today. I have so much to say today. So please excuse me, as I will take a little bit of time. But you can be sure that I will not be here next year speaking as the president of the bank. So you can take and deduct all my time for next year from now. Thank you. I'm sure they are counting the time for next year as well. I wish to start by saying thank you. Thank you for electing me as president of the African Development Bank on May 28, 2015, right here in Abidjan in this same hall. And Mr. Mambre, who was there at that time, was the minister right here and is here with us today. Thank you for re-electing me in 2020 to a second 5-year term with a historic 100% votes of all the 81 regional and non-regional shareholders, the first ever such in the history of the African Development Bank. Thank you very much. As I have always said, being president of the African Development Bank for me is not a job, it is a mission. Nothing can be greater than to have been given the responsibility, the resources, the mandate, the support, and the platform to help transform Africa, the continent of my own birth. Thanks to you, African heads of state and government, for your incredible support. I made it the hallmark of my presidency with my staff to carefully listen to and for us to understand the needs of your countries and to do all possible within the available resources of the bank to support your economic and development ambitions. Thank you to the people of Africa who daily are our focus. As I say to my staff, the most important part of the African Development Bank is the development part. We must fast-track Africa's development. I am proud that over the past 10 years, collectively, working together, the African Development Bank has been an accelerator of Africa's development. The high fives of the bank to light up and power Africa, to feed Africa, to industrialize Africa, integrate Africa, and improve the quality of life of the people of Africa have been transformational for Africa. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in the past decade, the work of the African Development Bank has impacted the lives of 565 million people. This includes 28 million people with access to electricity, 104 million people with food security, 121 million people with access to improved transport, 128 million people with access to improved health services, 67 million people with improved access to information and communications technology, 63 million people with access to drinking water, and 34 million people with access to sanitation. The bank accelerated regional integration with massive support for infrastructure to support the African Continental Free Trade Area. Over the past 10-year period, under my presidency of the African Development Bank, we would have provided, Your Excellencies, a total of $102 billion in support of Africa. This represents 46% of all the financing of the bank since its establishment in 1964. The African Development Bank financed over $55 billion in support of infrastructure, from roads to rails to airports to seaports to digital and communications, health, water, and sanitation. Excellence.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and right here in our host country, financing of most of the major urban infrastructure visible in Abidjan, according to the vision of the President, was strongly supported by the African Development Bank Group. Your Excellency, President Alassane Ouattara, I am delighted to announce that under my presidency and with the tireless work of our bank, the financial support of the African Development Bank to Côte d'Ivoire increased by 500% in 10 years. To give you a ballpark, between 1964 through 2014, cumulative approvals for Côte d'Ivoire totaled 2.3 billion euros. But since 2015, the bank has committed, within a mere 10 years, $3.6 billion, additional euros actually, which is actually 1.6 times higher than all approvals over the last 50 years. My dear friend, President Alassane Ouattara is a globally famed economist. And you know, if I do not do that, he's going to perform all the economic analysis of the work I would have done. And this also includes the famed Henri Conan Bédier Bridge, and it also includes, Mr. President, your project, the Abidjan Urban Transport Project, and the iconic bridge, which is 1,400 meters long, linking Yopougon to Adjamé, as well as 88 kilometers of urban highway and 89 refurbished junctions. This also includes all the beautiful roads, Mr. President, leading to the new Alassane Ouattara Stadium, where Côte d'Ivoire won. The 2023 AFCON, I was there, right there at the stadium with the President, and on that day,
bleu et avec lunettes.
I didn't wear the Ivorian colors. I was in blue. Just in case a goal was scored, I would focus on my glasses. And the President was very kind to invite me as he handed the cup. Your Excellency, Mr. Alassane Ouattara, beyond AFCON, I hope that as the bank, we have also scored a goal for Côte d'Ivoire. Thank you indeed, Mr. President.
Regardez le bleu là-bas, c'était bleu.
You can see the blue right there. It was blue. I was indeed in blue.
Excellencies, other projects pertaining to countries of the heads of state here present today. While several can be listed for each country, time does not allow. Nonetheless, the impact of the African Development Bank Group is tangibly felt all across Africa. In Tanzania, we are supporting $3.2 billion standard gauge railway connecting Tanzania to the Democratic Republic of Congo and Burundi. We supported the transport corridor that links Addis Ababa to Nairobi and Mombasa, which today has reduced the time to travel from 3 days to 1 day and expanded trade between both nations by 400%. The bank's last mile connectivity project in Kenya has helped to increase the number of Kenyans connected to national electricity grid from 2.42 million households in 2014 to 9.7 million households in 2024. And this has helped the country to increase electricity access from 36% to 76% over the same period. Also, the Lake Turkana, the wind project in Kenya, is today the largest operational wind power mill in all of Africa. As President Ruto of Kenya said when he conferred me with Kenya's highest national honor, the Chief of the Order of the Golden Heart, a great recognition for the work of the bank. He said, and I quote, "I am proud of the journey we started together 10 years ago. I can see its fruits. Kenyans benefit. Kenyan can feel its benefits." And this is the same all across Africa that I go with my staff. Today, the Kasungula Bridge connecting Zambia to Malawi and Namibia is expanding regional trade in Southern Africa. Since 1974, the collective dream of the people of Senegal and of Gambia was to have a bridge connecting both countries. That dream was realized by the African Development Bank and the African Development Fund. This impressive Senegambia bridge and the 24 kilometers road leading up to it has cut travel down from 2 days to less than 10 minutes. The Port Autonome de Lomé in Togo has expanded and been turned into a major transit port. In Comoros, we supported the construction of roads linking the islands. In Egypt, the bank supported Gabal El Asfar, a wastewater treatment plant. Today, it serves 12 million residents. It is now the largest water treatment plant in Africa, and is set to serve a total of almost 18 million people by 2040. And I was just there about a week ago to see President El-Sisi on that. The bank supported the new Ouarzazate solar complex in Morocco, which is the world's largest concentrated solar power plant at the time of its completion. We launched the Lagos to Abidjan Highway Corridor, for which the African Development Bank is supporting the feasibility studies, and we have mobilized $15 billion in investment interest towards this. Mais je dois vous dire quelque chose de très important.
Let me say something that is so important. His Excellency President Alassane Ouattara told me, additional, if you do not start the works for this corridor, please stay in Abuja. And I saw President Buhari, who was my president, and he told me, if you do not do that road, stay in Abidjan. So you know I'm a nomad.
I want to thank the excellencies and all the presidents across the West Africa region for making this happen, and I look forward to us actually doing that. So thank you, sirs. In Nigeria, we are implementing the development of special agro-industrial processing zones in 8 states and the Federal Capital Territory. We have mobilized $2.9 billion to support the establishment of these zones in 28 more states of Nigeria. Your Excellencies, we stood by countries when it mattered the most. The countries that were under sanctions to clear their debt arrears to the bank, including Somalia and Sudan, and all of my shareholders are here, and they have been exemplary in understanding and supporting us through that. And today, thanks to their support and the support from the African Development Fund, Somalia is showing tremendous recovery and resilience. Excellencies, thanks to the African Development Fund and the bank's Technology for African Agricultural Transformation, which we call TAT, Sudan, even in the midst of the conflict, is showing remarkable progress towards achieving self-sufficiency in wheat. With our support, it achieves 50% self-sufficiency in wheat in 2023 and 85% by 2024. We are also standing with Zimbabwe to clear its arrears to the bank and other creditors. As champion of the debt arrears clearance process, working with His Excellency former President Chisano, who is here with us, we have supported Zimbabwe, and they are making significant progress. I am pleased that the International Monetary Fund's staff monitor program will soon be concluded. And yesterday we were there. It was such an emotive time to see how far we have come. There's hope ahead. The past 10 years were filled with never before seen multiple and simultaneous crises, the COVID-19 to geopolitical tensions emanating from the Russian war in Ukraine, which in turn triggered a global food crisis. At the same time, a global debt crisis and devastating climate change pose untold hardships and challenges. In the midst of this polycrisis, your bank, the African Development Bank Group, strongly supported by its shareholders, stood strong and innovatively supported Africa as it navigated each crisis. Africa survived. Africa was resilient. Africa grew out of them all, and Africa is still standing and standing tall. Thanks for your support. We stood up for Africa when it mattered the most, the COVID-19 crisis. Africa, the continent with the least room to maneuver, was effectively left alone in the midst of the most challenging global crisis it had ever faced in decades. No vaccines, no medicines, no oxygen, no masks, no gloves. As developed countries got second and third COVID-19 booster shots, vaccines, Africa was scrambling for just one shot for its population. With the support of our shareholders, the African Development Bank swung into bold action and launched a $3 billion social bond, the largest ever in world history at that time. To support Africa, we set up a crisis response facility for up to $10 billion for counter-cyclical support for our countries. Walking away from home, my exemplary staff and board of directors, we worked hard and we delivered more for Africa even in the midst of all of that. Today, the African Development Bank Group, Your Excellencies, is implementing a $3 billion program for quality health infrastructure. A $3 billion program again for the development of local pharmaceutical manufacturing capacity in Africa. We created new institutions, such as the African Pharmaceutical Technology Foundation, to enable Africa to gain access to intellectual property rights and to protected technologies and processes for manufacturing vaccines and medicines. We strongly supported African agriculture, and in the process increased Africa's capacity to feed itself. Your Excellencies, in 10 years, our work allowed 104 million Africans to achieve food security and provided 13 million farmers with access to improved agricultural technologies. I see the impact of our work in supporting Africa to avoid a looming food crisis predicted when the war of Russia in Ukraine broke out. The news headlines were awash with predictions of a food crisis in Africa, as the continent stood to lose 30 million tons of food, wheat, maize, and oilseeds imported from Russia and Ukraine. The African Development Bank Group swung into immediate action with a $1.5 billion emergency food production facility. Our Feed Africa plan worked. In just 2 years, Your Excellencies, our work had allowed 14 million farmers across 30 countries to have access to improved seeds and fertilizers. They produced 44 million metric tons of food. That is 14 million metric tons of food than what we were losing from Russia and Ukraine. That's 116% above the target that we set. And the total value of the food, $17.3 billion US. Thanks to the bank's support, Ethiopia increased its agricultural areas, producing heat-tolerant wheat varieties, which grew from 5,000 hectares when we started there in 2018 to over 650,000 hectares by 2023. Today, Ethiopia is self-sufficient in wheat, and in less than 4 years, Ethiopia has become a net exporter of wheat. The landmark Feed Africa Summit, which was held in Dakar, then under President Macky Sall, brought together over 30 heads of state and government who signed the Food and Agricultural Delivery Compact to accelerate food production and food sovereignty in their countries, which was approved unanimously then by the African Union. We mobilized $72 billion globally for Africa's food security, working with our partners. The inspiration of the Feed Africa Summit informed our next bold action to achieve universal access to electricity in Africa. To fast-track access to electricity, the African Development Bank and the World Bank, myself and the president of the World Bank, Ajay Banga, we jointly launched what's called the Mission 300 in Dar es Salaam to connect 300 million people in Africa to electricity by 2030. At the Africa Energy Summit in January of this year, we organized, hosted, and co-chaired, along with Our Excellency, President Samia Suluhu Hassan, a historic gathering of over 48 African countries, where our leaders unanimously endorsed the Dakar-Dar es Salaam Declaration on Energy Access with the full support of the African Union. Your Excellencies, the declaration marks an unprecedented continental commitment to accelerate energy access through coordinated national actions, regional interconnections, and enhanced investment in renewables and grid expansion. I'm pleased to say, Your Excellencies, that we mobilize $55 billion in support of these national energy compacts. Also, we advanced on providing universal access to clean cooking for women in Africa with a successful African Clean Cooking Summit held in Paris, again co-chaired by our dynamic president, Madam Samia Suluhu Hassan, and we mobilized $4 billion for clean cooking. I mean, why is it everybody in the world cooks with gas and nobody dies? Why is it that African women are collecting firewood and charcoal and dung to cook? It doesn't make any sense. And by the grace of God, we started dealing with that particular issue. We must be able to have our women cook and cook with pride like anybody else in the world. The African Development Bank launched what's called the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa, AGIA, supported by the G7, to mobilize $10 billion for climate-resilient infrastructure all across Africa. We strongly supported the youth and the women. The bank's Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa, AFAWA, approved $2.5 billion in support of over 24,000, in fact, it's $2.9 billion, in support of over 24,000 women-owned businesses all across Africa, expanding access of women businesses to finance through 185 financial institutions in 44 countries. And Excellencies, you know, our women in Africa, I mean, I've never seen a bird that flies with two wings. Every bird has two wings. We have to make sure that women in Africa have access to finance, period. In support of the youth and to help unleash their potential, the bank launched what's called the Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Banks, which will expand access to finance to create youth-based wealth all across Africa. We expanded the voice and participation of civil society. I was with them yesterday. Across all of the bank's projects, we instituted a civil society forum each year to interact, to engage more transparently. Today, rather than being adversaries, we are strategic partners. We significantly strengthened the financial architecture in Africa, thanks to our African Development Fund donors. We raised $8.9 billion for African Development Fund's 16th replenishment. And that is the largest ever in the history of the fund since its establishment in 1973. We innovated and developed a new financial framework that will allow the African Development Fund to mobilize $27 billion from the global capital markets. It's my time here to actually ask that we please thank all of our donors to the African Development Fund, because without that, we'll not be able to be supporting all of these 37 countries. Thank you. The shareholders of the bank showed extraordinary support and confidence in our leadership and management of the bank. When I was first elected president in 2015, the capital of the bank stood at $93 billion. From 2015 to 2025, with the support of our shareholders, we grew the bank's capital from $93 billion to $318 billion. Thank you. We put that expanded capital into remarkable use with unprecedented financial support to all of our African countries. Let me explain for perspectives. Since the establishment of the African Development Bank in 1964 until 2014, its total approvals were $118 billion. However, in the past 10 years alone, under my presidency with our boards of directors and my staff, our total approvals were $102 billion. That represents 46% of all the approvals in the history of the African Development Bank Group. We have also ramped up our disbursements. The total disbursements of the bank group in the last 10 years alone at $59 billion represents almost half of all the disbursements in the history of the African Development Bank Group. These are not just numbers. Thanks to your collective support, this represents a new dynamism, a scale of transformative impact of the African Development Bank Group that at any point in its history, we provided significant financial support to African financial institutions, from commercial banks to regional development finance institutions to multilateral development finance institutions, boosting their capital bases. Under my presidency, with our board of directors and my staff, we set up and built Africa 50 from scratch to what it is today, for which I'm extremely proud. A first-rate private equity infrastructure investment platform with portfolio companies now worth over $7 billion. We work very closely and strongly and supported the African Union. This includes a provision of about $12 million in institutional support, over $17 million to the African Continental Free Trade Area, and over $27 million to the African Center for Disease Control. The African Investment Forum, launched by the bank and its partners in 2018, has since mobilized $225 billion in investment interest in Africa across several projects. Excellencies, the African Development Bank has strongly supported several African countries in tackling the effects of climate change. The African Adaptation Acceleration Program, which we call AAAP, is financing commitments of $25 billion from the bank and in partnership with the Global Center for Adaptation. And I'm glad to say, Your Excellencies, today it is the largest climate adaptation program in the world. Over the past 10 years, Your Excellencies, the African Development Bank Group has become a global leader in financial innovations that have enabled us to stretch our balance sheets and deliver exceptional impact. The bank led with the use of synthetic securitization in 2015, becoming the first multilateral development bank in the world to do so. The African Development Bank also launched a $750 million hybrid capital in the global capital market in 2024, becoming also the first multilateral financial institution in the world to do so, opening up a new asset class for investors globally. The African Development Bank, your bank, spearheaded, together with the Inter-American Development Bank, the framework to allow the rechanneling of the IMF special drawing rights, SDRs, to multilateral development banks, which we can leverage by 4 to 8 times to provide much needed financial concessional financing at scale. Excellencies, the image, the respect, and global confidence in the bank have soared through our active and unprecedented participation in the summit meetings of the G7 and G20. With your backing, as President, along with my colleagues and our board of directors, we have amplified the voice and the needs of Africa at the highest levels globally. As my mandate that you have given me as President of the bank draws to a close, I am extremely proud of the work that we have done and the incredible impact of the bank has had on the daily lives of millions of Africans. This has been a collaborative effort that we all can take pride in. We maintain the stellar AAA credit ratings of the bank for 10 years under very difficult circumstances with your support, with all the 3 global credit rating agencies, from Fitch to Moody's to Standard & Poor's, even in the most difficult times of COVID. And I want to thank all my governors. I knew how many calls I made. I knew how many doors I locked. I knew how many conversations I had. But I knew how much your heart was with us that helped us to survive and to continue to sail despite all the challenges. To you, our governors and countries, I say thank you. Thank you so very much. It was not an easy thing, but I'm extremely grateful to you. Your Excellencies, the independent review of the governance systems of the African Development Bank by our governors asked for in 2020 was completed about 2 months ago. The review showed that the African Development Bank is very well governed, respects the independence of its oversight organs, and is at par with all of its peers globally. In view of all that transpired in 2020, I feel vindicated and enormously happy. I am exceptionally proud of the African Development Group that I lead. We developed a new institution, the African Financial Stability Mechanism, unanimously approved by the African Union to support Africa to refinance its debt on global capital markets, reduce contagion effects of economic shocks, and be the Africa's first financial safety net. The African Development Bank, your bank, is today globally recognized and respected. Your Excellencies, the African Development Bank was ranked as the best multilateral financial institution in the world by Global Finance. Your bank, the African Development Bank, was ranked for 2 consecutive years the most transparent financial institution globally by Public Watch Fund for our sovereign operations, scoring last year 98.8% on the Transparency Index, the highest ever in the history of the Global Transparency Index. And in 2024, the bank achieved its highest income ever in its 60-year history. The African Development Fund, the concessionary financing institution of the bank, ranked 2nd best in the world and higher than all 55 bilateral financing organizations in all developed countries of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. As I complete my 2 5-year terms as president of the African Development Bank, I am proud of the legacy we are leaving behind, and I say we, it's a collective effort, for my successor, for the bank, and for Africa. We have built a world-class financial institution that will continue to advance Africa's position within a rapidly changing global development and geopolitical environment. I did not walk alone. I walked with an exemplary group of people at different points during my past 10 years. I am thankful for the exemplary support of the boards of directors over the past 10 years, for your strong support, for your strong oversight over our work and operations. And I'd like my board that currently are here today to please stand and be recognized. It's my time to recognize my board of directors. Wherever you are, please stand and be recognized, and I appreciate it. Thank you. They're a very tough board, but we get things done. I am very thankful to you, our board of governors. You have been simply incredible, and you have given us exceptional shareholder support. You were there for us, and you were there with us in the up times. You were there with us in the down times. You never doubted us. I'm indebted to you for your support. To our host country, thank you very much for your incredible hospitality. My special thanks and gratitude goes again to my senior brother, President Alassane Ouattara. Who steadfastly thank you. who steadfastly stood by me, counseled me, supported me throughout my 10 years here as head of the bank. Monsieur le Président,
Mr. President, I consider myself Ivorian. I lived here for 15 years before being elected president of the bank. I spent 5 years in Boaké. I was principal economist for the Rice Development Association in Africa. I was in Korogo, Man, Ojene, Galua, Daloa. I supervised 10 Ivorian students at the center, and 9 of them had excellent with the congratulations of the examination panel. So, apart from Nigeria, my country of birth, this is the country in which I have spent most of my life, so I consider myself Ivorian. Thank you, my dear brother, Mr. President. You were there. You supported me each time. Grace, could you please stand up? Let us celebrate our president. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank the government and people of Côte d'Ivoire as well.
Now, under me, they approved my vision and our vision to build a new world-class headquarters for the African Development Bank right here in Abidjan. Je précise, ça sera le...
This will be the headquarters of the bank, the new headquarters of the bank.
Sky, it will send out a powerful signal for la Côte d'Ivoire, la banque.
For Côte d'Ivoire, the African Development Bank is here to stay. We are here to stay.
But please, no person is perfect, and no person is infallible. I have given my very best and made my own mistakes, all with good intentions. If in the course of my passionate and relentless drive to accelerate the agenda of Africa, I have offended some in word or in deed, through acts of commission or acts of omission, please know that it was never personal. Where applicable, I ask for your forgiveness. To close, I would like to express my deepest appreciation to my staff. Please, I want all my staff to stand, if you're here, for your dedication, for your hard work, for your diligence, for your commitment, for your dependability. From literally sleepless nights on missions, at global events, on project and country visits, you put up with my habit of working late. I never sleep. They know I never sleep. C'est pas un président qui dort, you dors pas.
I'm not a president who sleeps. I don't sleep.
Sometimes in the early hours of the morning, you show remarkable resilience, but today I must owe you an apology. I apologize for denying you sleep. You, my staff, are the ones that I will miss the most. You are simply amazing. You work extremely hard, and you delivered big for Africa. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your selfless work and loyal support. We have come a long way, and we did it all for Africa. Here is a high five to all of you, and keep the faith. And to my darling wife, Grace, I am deeply grateful for your being my rock. You prayed for me. You encouraged me. You inspired me. You sacrificed for me. You stayed unshakable by my side at all times. We weathered some heavy storms together, but God was with us. You always reminded me of the God who was with me on the mountaintop is also the one with me in the valley. Today, together, we made it to the mountaintops, we went through the valleys and the waters, and by the grace of God, we did not drown. Thank you very much, my love. Together we gave African Development Bank and Africa our all. I'm very grateful to you, and I'm glad the best decision I ever made in my life was to marry you. I honestly gave Africa my heart, my mind, and my all. I fought for what I believe were in Africa's best interests, every single day and every turn in my 10 years as president. I will continue to serve Africa today and well into the future by God's grace. I am thoroughly convinced that God did not make a mistake in creating me as an African. I took my oath of office for a second time on September 1st, 2020. I made a simple prayer. God, as I start my second time as president of the African Development Bank and humble myself before you, I ask that you give me wisdom and that Africa will shine and prosper. Together with all of our shareholders, help us to make Africa shine. That is because I know that without God, I am absolutely nothing. For all we have achieved, I owe to God's infinite mercies and grace. So now unto God, the Almighty God, who held us up and blessed the works of all of our hands at the African Development Bank over the last 10 years. To him be all praise and glory forever. May God bless the African Development Bank. May God bless the African Development Fund. May God bless the Nigerian Trust Fund that together make up the African Development Bank. May God bless the boards of directors, past and present. May God bless the boards of governors, past and present. May God bless the amazing staff of the bank, past and present. My hardworking and innovative senior management teams, and of course the incredible members of the Staff Council, past and present. May God comfort the families of some of my staff that I lost along the way over the past 10 years, especially during COVID. I will carry with me the precious memories of your service to the bank. I only wish you are here today. May God send rains of blessings on every one of the bank's 81 shareholder countries to continue to support Africa. And now, to my own beloved country, Nigeria, and the presidents who nominated and supported me for election twice as president, I owe my deepest appreciation and gratitude. To President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, who nominated me for my first time, and to President Muhammadu Buhari, who carried it forward and backed my election and stood stoically behind me during the challenging times and supported my re-election for a second time. Thank you, sirs, most sincerely. My immense appreciation and gratitude also go to Nigeria's former presidents and heads of state, President Olusegun Obasanjo, General Abdulsalam Abubakar, General Yakubu Gowon, General Ibrahim Babangida, former Vice President of Nigeria, Namadi Sambo, Atiku Abubakar, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, the former governor of my state, Ibikunle Amosun, who helped me at various times. They all played major roles in supporting me. And of course, my dear sister, an amazing woman, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. She was then the Minister of Finance of Nigeria, and she was my indefatigable campaigner-in-chief in 2015. To President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, my president, and the Vice President Kashim Shettima, for your support over the past 2 years, I am profoundly very grateful. Thank you for graciously approving the replenishment of the Nigerian Trust Fund for another 15 years. I understand will be about $500 million. May God bless you, all of our heads of state and government in Africa, for your incredible kindness, support for me and my colleagues over the past decade. May God bless the African Union and all the regional economic communities, the private sector, the civil society, the youth and the women of Africa, the multilateral and bilateral institutions, the partner institutions, the media organizations who supported us along the way. Together, we collectively join hands around the baobab tree of Africa's challenges and opportunities. Thank you for believing in Africa. May Africa always thrive and shine. And may our light never grow dim. God bless you all. Merci beaucoup.
You may be seated. Thank you, Mr. President, for such a heartwarming and motivating speech that I'm sure has energized those who are contending to be president of the bank. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce the video of the host country.
La Côte d'Ivoire avance, et l'avance vite, portée par une vision claire, celle d'un développement durable, inclusif et résolument tourné vers l'avenir. Au cœur de cette dynamique, le plan national de développement 2021-2025 avec pour objectif l'amélioration concrète du bien-être des populations à travers un développement socio-économique ambitieux. Et les résultats parlent d'eux-mêmes. L'économie ivoirienne est en pleine expansion. Aujourd'hui, 9e puissance économique d'Afrique, la Côte d'Ivoire attire de plus en plus d'investisseurs. Le taux d'investissement a quasiment doublé, passant de 14,1% en 2011 à plus de 26,2% en 2024. L'agriculture reste le pilier de cette croissance. Premier producteur mondial de cacao et de noix de cajou, premier en Afrique pour le caoutchouc naturel et deuxième pour l'huile de palme. À cela s'ajoute une amélioration continue des infrastructures qui renforce la compétitivité du pays. Le développement économique permet de financer des infrastructures de qualité. Depuis quelques années, ce sont plus de 1600 km de routes interurbaines, 400 km d'autoroutes, 57 ponts et échangeurs qui ont été construits. Dans le domaine de l'énergie, le taux d'électrification est passé de 33% en 2011 à plus de 94% en fin 2024. Un progrès spectaculaire qui transforme le quotidien des Ivoiriens. L'éducation est aussi une priorité. L'enseignement supérieur progresse avec des institutions de référence comme l'Institut national polytechnique Félix Houphouët-Boigny, aujourd'hui classé 2e meilleure université d'Afrique francophone. Côté santé, les avancées sont tout aussi notables. Aujourd'hui, 80% des Ivoiriens vivent à moins de 5 km d'un centre de santé. Un accès facilité qui permet aux populations de mieux se soigner et de mieux vivre. Dans un contexte régional complexe, la Côte d'Ivoire a renforcé sa sécurité. L'indice de sécurité est passé de 4 en 2011 à 1,2 en 2024. Face à ces enjeux de développement, la Côte d'Ivoire a pu compter sur un partenaire stratégique de longue date, le groupe de la Banque africaine de développement. Institution panafricaine dont le siège est établi dans le pays même, à Abidjan, la BAD joue un rôle crucial dans l'accompagnement des ambitions du pays depuis 1971. Plus de 5 milliards de dollars ont été investis dans 110 projets nationaux. Dans cette optique, le soutien du groupe de la Banque africaine de développement est particulièrement significatif. L'institution accompagne notamment la transformation agricole par un apport financier à 8 agropoles sur les 9 que compte le pays. L'agropole du Bélier à Yamoussoukro en est un exemple concret. Et dans le nord, où l'agriculture représente 65% de l'économie locale, les chantiers sont déjà lancés. Aussi, l'appui de la BAD dans l'extension de la centrale électrique de Cyprel a permis une production supplémentaire de 800 GWh par an, assez pour alimenter plus de 247 000 foyers. Avec cette dynamique, désormais la Côte d'Ivoire exporte de l'électricité vers ses voisins, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Mali, consolidant sa position régionale. Et à Abidjan, le projet de transport urbain lancé en 2018 transforme la mobilité. Des projets d'envergure comme le 4e pont et la rocade Y4 qui ont désenclavé des zones importantes de la capitale ont été rendus possibles grâce au soutien du groupe de la Banque africaine de développement, un partenaire engagé dans l'amélioration de la qualité de vie des Ivoiriens depuis des décennies. La Côte d'Ivoire est aujourd'hui un pays d'opportunités. Un pays où la croissance économique va de pair avec le progrès social. Un pays qui mise sur l'humain, l'innovation et la stabilité.
Please put your hands together once more for Côte d'Ivoire that has done so well. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, may we please rise to welcome His Excellency Mr. Alassane Ouattara, President of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, to deliver his opening address.
Merci.
I thank you. Could you please take your seats now? And will we please rise and give a clean a round of applause? Bravo, Akin. Bravo to you.
Bravo, bravo, bravo. Merci à tous.
Thank you all. Thank you for your brilliant speech and for your words of thanks to all of us. Your Excellency Azali Assoumani, President of the Union of the Comoros, my dear brother and friend, Your Excellency Mr. John Dramani Mahama, President of the Republic of Ghana, my young brother, Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana, twin brothers. And I affectuously call John Mahama, I call him John the First. Do you know why? Because John the First was it's John the Third. The first was Rawlings, the second was Kufuor, and John the Third was John Atta-Mills, and then now we have John Dramani, John the Fourth. Your Excellency Joaquim Chissano, former President of the Republic of Mozambique, Your Excellency Vice Presidents, Prime Ministers, and heads of governments representing heads of states of brotherly countries, Mr. Prime Minister of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, head of government, the heads of the national institutions, Madame Niale Kaba, Ministry of the Economy, the Planning and Development of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, and chairperson of the Board of Governors of the African Development Bank Group and not the World Bank. You know, it is a continental bank. It is our World Bank, so to speak. Mr. President of the African Development Bank Group, my dear friend and brother Akin, honorable ministers, distinguished governors for the African Development Bank Group, Your Excellencies, heads of international organizations and development partners, distinguished representatives of international organizations, Your Excellencies, ambassadors, and members of the diplomatic corps, distinguished representatives of the senior management of the African Development Bank, distinguished representatives of the private sector, and there are many here, and civil society organizations as well, distinguished members of the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Akwaba to you all. Welcome to the 2025 annual meetings of the African Development Bank Group, which are holding here in Abidjan, our beautiful capital city, from the 26th to the 30th of May 2025. Let me start by reiterating to my friends, my brothers and heads of state, my warm thanks for being present here in Abidjan, particularly my brother Azali. It is not a short trip at all. I am grateful that you took the time to come and support us, as well as my brother Chisano. I know that as for Mahama, he is at home here in Côte d'Ivoire. Thank you for being here, my dear brothers. I would also like to hail the presence of the vice presidents, prime ministers, head of government, senior representatives of member states, and of officials of partner institutions and private sector actors. My special congratulations go to Minister Niale Kaba. Niale, could you please rise? Thank you. You are the governor for the African Development Bank Group. I thank you for the excellent cooperation between the ADB and Côte d'Ivoire and for the successful organization of these annual meetings. Akin mentioned what has been done for our country, but I don't just want to simply congratulate him. I want to say that with Niale Kaba, you were a very good couple. You were a strong team, you know. And Grace is my sister and friend, and she understands what I'm trying to say. Let me also congratulate Akin for his commitment to the development of our continent. All what you showed here speaks for itself and shows to what extent you have revitalized the bank. And I want to say congratulations once again, my friend and dear brother. Under your stewardship, the ADB recorded exceptional performances under the high fives, as you said, namely Light Up and Power Africa, Feed Africa, Industrialize Africa, Integrate Africa, and improve the quality of life for Africans.
Despite the challenges that the continent has had to face in the recent past, we can certainly say that the situation would have been much worse without the contribution of the African Development Bank, for which we thank you. Your integrated approach has made it possible to focus the bank's intervention on essential levers for for sustainable and inclusive growth. And I would like to thank all participants to these annual meetings, be they public decision makers, private sector or civil society organizations, representatives of national or international media from across the continents. I would like to greet you all, and I hope that the media will underscore some of the positive and joyful sides of our continent. Africans exert themselves and make a lot of effort, which is not always visible in international and national media. So this request is made to the media to be more positive in your outlook and reporting. Clearly, we do have challenges given the global context, be it Russia's invasion of the Ukraine or the war in the Sudan, the war in Gaza with Israel, and etc. But Africa deserves some encouragement and some good news. So we trust you with that. So please underscore the positive news and the very good performance of the African Development Bank, and please continue to promote and encourage that. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the current annual meetings are holding against a global backdrop characterized by some major and complex challenges. The geopolitical conflicts that I mentioned a moment ago in Eastern Europe and in the Middle East, and in fact, I referred to the invasion of Russia by Ukraine and the conflict in Gaza and Israel, but these are clearly conflicts and should be named as such. The intensification of extreme climate events and tightening financial conditions, the dropping public finance or development public aid, as well as trade wars, exacerbated trade wars since the beginning of the year, have created an unstable global environment where the very principles of multilateralism are being called into question. And in fact, as President Andeshina was stating, this has devastating impacts on fragile countries. All of these new events risk jeopardizing, fragilizing developing economies, the African economies, by further exacerbating inflation, the risk of debt overhang, as well as macroeconomic imbalances and social inequalities. So against this backdrop, global economic prospects are quite uncertain, and whereas those of Africa more specifically, the outlook for Africa remains clearly insufficient to meet the needs of the continent itself and its population. The issues of related to terrorism, to civil conflicts, greatly impact our continent, and the strong demographic growth as well is a further challenge, although the growth rates that we are seeing in Africa from that perspective are slightly higher than those in developed countries. In reality, the slightly higher population growth in Africa is positive. According to the IMF, the global growth should, on average, be about 3.1% during 2026-2030, and in Africa, this growth should step up slightly, going from 3.3% in 2024 to 4% in 2026. This slight discrepancy, however, is is absorbed by the demographic growth, meaning that the poverty continues to grow and to worsen in many African countries. We need, therefore, more efforts for this growth to deliver better living conditions for populations, for these to deliver transformation and root and branch transformation across our continent. We need massive improvements and investments in social dimensions, as well as the strategic leveraging of strategic levers, of which are human, natural capital, financial resources, and innovation. This is why I'd like to welcome and celebrate the overall theme of our annual meetings, which call us to make more of Africa's capital and to ensure that it works better for Africa's development. This is a genuine challenge. It's an opportunity as well to discuss the reforms and policies necessary in order to enable the human, natural, financial, and trade capital to genuinely contribute to the structural transformation of African economies. Excellencies, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, I may not be as eloquent as my younger brother, President Adesina, but let me state that Africa has remarkable potential driven by talented, youthful population, natural resources, abundant mining resources. It's very attractive to investment opportunities and very promising economic outlook. But given this potential, you may ask why such a slow socioeconomic transformation across the continent. This is very much a paradox. As I stated earlier, demographic growth is one of the constraints we face, but a better use of capital should free and enable better use of our capital and accelerate a transition to more inclusive, green, and resilient economies. President Chissano was saying earlier that as he flew over and was nearing Côte d'Ivoire, he was impressed to see all of the green coverage. But I wanted to say, in fact, and I'd like to congratulate my government and the Prime Minister, who's focused very much on tree planting. In fact, on a yearly basis, we have a day rather, and we have an objective focusing on planting a tree for every Ivorian. And so I continue to encourage Ivorians to do so regularly, because our forests, unfortunately, or most of our forests, some 80% of forests were destroyed in the period since independence to date. I'm also happy to note that the themes of our meeting cover some cross-cutting aspects, such as technological progress, which is a key driver for enhanced productivity and leveraging of capital. The experience of East Asian countries demonstrate that key driver of growth, competitiveness, and economic transformation stems from national technological capacity and growth. And I'm happy to see how interested our youth are in these sectors. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, in support to our member states, the role of financial and development institutions is pivotal in ensuring implementation of integrated policies across the continent. Clearly, each one of our countries needs to improve and fine-tune the implementation of such reform policies. And I'd like to underscore the role of the bank in this particular regard, and I'd like to thank and congratulate the whole African Development Bank group team. Since its inception in 1964, the African Development Bank has profoundly transformed the social and economic realities in Africa. As President Adesina portrayed earlier, we can certainly commend all of these successive presidents, and particularly President Adesina, for all of these accomplishments. The bar is set quite high for the incoming president, and we will be very eager to follow the progress to be made over the next 5 and 10 years, and to compare that performance to the bar set by President Adesina. Significant resources have been invested by and leveraged by the bank. Many accomplishments have been made across the continent in the areas of food security, industrialization, powering our countries, enhanced transport infrastructure, regional integration policies, as well as the overall improvement in living conditions for our populations. And I would like, in fact, to commend the commitment and the doggedness of Presidents Adesina as well as his predecessors. They have been able to place our institution at the very, or amongst some of the top institutions worldly. The bank's strategic drive dovetails perfectly with national and international development agendas, of which the United Nations 2030 agenda, as well as the African Union's 2063 agenda for Africa. And in this regard, Côte d'Ivoire, or in Côte d'Ivoire, the African Development Bank has been a key partner in mobilizing necessary resources and ensuring the success of our various national development plan. I would like to avail myself of this opportunity to recognize the quality of the cooperation between Côte d'Ivoire and the AFDB. We have seen substantial support, which has grown twofold in the past 10 years, and we'd like to thank the bank and thank you for focusing on what we have accomplished in the past few years together. Ladies and gentlemen, these annual meetings are convened to, or will be hosting the election of the incoming president of the African Development Bank. And the incoming president will continue the work and continue the vibrant work carried out under the helm of Adesina, and will ensure that the bank continues to play a premier role in the continent's advance towards inclusive social and economic development. I'm convinced that during the exchanges we will have during these annual meetings, my last page is a little bit, it's sticking. And yet I wrote this statement myself. I was up until 4 a.m. It is the last page. Very well. It is my last page.
Je voudrais, en fait, je pensais que
I thought my statement was as long as President Adesina's, but in any case, I am convinced, as I was saying, that the discussions we will have during these annual meetings will shed light on strategies and various measures able to accelerate Africa's development. You see, Adesina, these are, I seem to be quoting you here. So let me close by stating how proud we are to host the African Development Bank, and thank you once again. Thank you, dear President. Thank you to the boards of directors, of governors. Thank you very much to all of our guests for honoring us with your presence here. We are very grateful of your support. We will do everything we can to ensure that the bank continues to serve this continent. I'd like, therefore, to declare the annual meetings of the African Development Bank group open, and thank you once again, each one of you.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands once more for the President. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, with that strong and inspiring opening address, we have come to the end of the opening ceremony and the beginning of the annual meetings. We will now transition to the high-level presidential dialogue, making Africa's capital work better for Africa's development. And may I plead with you to please remain in the room. It will be a short one. Thank you very much.
Well, Your Excellencies, heads of state and government, distinguished governors of the African Development Bank Group, heads of multilateral development finance institutions, development finance institutions, captains of industry, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to these opening ceremonies of the African Development Bank Group, right here in the beautiful and very vibrant city of Abidjan, in the equally beautiful country of Côte d'Ivoire, a capital city and a country whose economy and infrastructure is growing at the speed of light. No doubt, testimonies to the visionary and bold leadership of President Ouattara. Congratulations. My name is Victor Oladokun, and it's a pleasure and an honor to co-moderate this presidential dialogue session with my very dear colleague and friend, Marie-Angèle Touré.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, Victor. Excellencies, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. Akwaba, which in Côte d'Ivoire means welcome. You often hear Akwaba when you take part in high-level events or upon arrival at the airport. Akwaba is not only a word, though. It's really a philosophy, and this hospitality is experienced on a daily basis. So, in fact, ladies and gentlemen, do you think that when Dr. Akinwumi Adesina came 10 years ago to settle here with his wife 10 years ago in Côte d'Ivoire, do you think that he had imagined at the time that he'd be standing here in front of thousands of people saying, I feel like an Ivorian? Well, that is the very spirit of Ivorian hospitality, and I think we can celebrate that. Let me turn to Victor.
Nigerian, how do you feel when you are in Côte d'Ivoire? Victor, you can tell us the truth, please.
Well, if President Adesina is a citizen of Côte d'Ivoire, the least I can be is an adopted, partially adopted Ivorian. But je suis à la maison.
I feel at home in Côte d'Ivoire.
Personne ne résiste.
No one can resist the charms of Ivorian hospitality. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a genuine honor and pleasure to be with you in this room where we can see a very well-filled room, a room in which we are charting the course for a more sovereign, more inclusive Africa.
Course of this session, the shifting winds of global trade and aid and economic challenges actually signify the importance of this 2025 annual meetings of the African Development Bank, and also brings into very, very sharp focus the theme of this presidential dialogue, making Africa's capital work for Africa's development. It underscores the need, no doubt, for strong institutions, strong economies, stronger private and public sector financing, stronger accountability, stronger transparency, and certainly much more innovative financial instruments with which to drive Africa's enormous and amazing potential.
Indeed, Victor. Mesdames et messieurs.
Ladies and gentlemen, over the next 45 minutes, it's a privilege to explore how various African nations are already leveraging the huge wealth within this continent, be it its natural, financial, or human capital, to ensure sustainable, innovative, and resilient growth, one that's focused on the future. We are looking at an Africa that's looking to the future. Before we come to the merit of our discussion, let me call on all of our guests, media representatives, all of you in this room. Please share this event on social media. Use hashtag AFDBAM2025 and invite your various communities to follow us live, to follow this session on YouTube. This is your dialogue as well.
Go ahead and let's get our session started. If you could start with the introductions and welcomes to the platform.
Bien évidemment.
Yes, of course. It's my distinct pleasure and honor to welcome with all of the protocol due to them. We'd like to warmly welcome to the stage His Excellency Mr. Azali Assoumani, President of the Union of the Comoros.
Mr. John Mahama, President of the Republic of Ghana. As well as His Excellency Dr. Philip Isidore Mpango, Vice President, United Republic of Tanzania, representing Her Excellency Mrs. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania.
Et enfin,
and I would also like to invite His Excellency Mr. Ali Mohamed Lamine, Prime Minister of the Republic of Niger, to kindly join us on this panel.
Mesdames et messieurs, nous
Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, we will kickstart our high-level discussion. My first question is addressed to His Excellency Mr. Azali Assoumani, President of the Union of Comoros. Mr. President, the Comoros are blessed by nature, blessed with huge potential in the blue economy. We hear this very regularly at a time when island countries are seeking to leverage their maritime resources as drivers of growth. How is your government building on this source to build a sustainable, job-generating economy, one that's turned towards the future?
D'accord. Merci beaucoup, Madame.
Thank you very much, Madam. At the outset, I would like to avail myself of this wonderful opportunity to congratulate and thank President Ouattara for all of the excellent arrangements that have been made. As is the custom, whenever we come to Côte d'Ivoire, we are wonderfully welcomed here. We also were very moved by the speech made by our brother Adesina, as he said, 10 years at the helm of this institution. The performance of this institution, its standing at the international level speaks for itself. We'd like to thank him and tell him you have two graces to celebrate: the grace of God and the grace who stands by your side, and wherever you go, they will be with you, and you'll always be successful. To respond to your question, this is, of course, this is a crucially important question. We are an island country. We are faced with climate change. So we are an island country, but we are comprised of 4 islands, in fact, and therefore this puts us before major challenges. As you said, this is a country, 2,000 square kilometers, land kilometers, but 150,000 square kilometers of sea, of maritime space. So this is a huge potential in terms of area. The challenge, however, is climate change, rising sea levels, piracy, illicit fishing, pollution. These are the many challenges we must face. But I can reassure you that the African Development Bank and President Adesina has been very supportive. And to respond to your question specifically, as you said, the blue economy requires, of course, the fisheries, fishery capacity that we have. Unfortunately, that's still undertapped. But we are focused on this. And then to date, we have been able to use some 30% of this resource through traditional fishery techniques, but we've worked with partners such as the bank, who have been willing to finance us, to work in partnerships as well, in order to transform our fishing capacity to commercial grade. We have worked with, we have been able rather to train our fishers. We have been working with partners. We have sought out investors as well, who have demonstrated their interest in supporting us. But as you know, we have fisheries and tourism as our key assets. This is very much our focus, madam. But of course, we need your support, your assistance, be it at multilateral level or bilateral level. A country such as Côte d'Ivoire, with the experience you have, I think would be very useful. So once again, thank you very much. And our cooperation is long-standing. It's about 50 years old. We will continue to do more, and I'd like to thank you, Madam.
Thank you very much, President Assoumani, and thank you very much again also for your passion, even as a leader. Our next question is going to come to President Mahama. Well, the big elephant in the room is the global shifts that are taking place geopolitically in the midst of growing trade uncertainties globally. What is Ghana doing to leverage the value of its tremendous commodities and natural resources? And how well is Ghana coping with the growing uncertainty right now?
Thank you very much. After the Second World War, we agreed that a multilateral rule-based trading system was a better way to go. And so a lot of work was done by the World Trade Organization, together with all our countries, to set up the rules for trade amongst ourselves. Unfortunately, that system is being upended, and countries have decided to impose tariffs based on their own interests. And so we've transitioned into a transactional world. It sends a signal to Africa that we need to pull ourselves out by our bootstraps, because there's not going to be a free dinner anywhere. And that means that we must, one, mobilize more revenue locally. And I mean, with the assistance of the African Development Bank, I think that we're doing quite fine. But domestically, we must mobilize revenue locally. We must add value to our products, and we must get a better share for the natural resource endowment that God has given us. And so I believe that is a signal to all of us to look inward and see how we can trade more amongst ourselves. Happily, we have the protocol on the African Continental Free Trade Area, which the majority of African nations have ratified. And so what it means is that we have the opportunity to be able to trade amongst ourselves. And I'm happy that the African Development Bank and other partners have focused on investing in the trade infrastructure amongst ourselves. It's not enough to just have a protocol on continental free trade. If you don't have the railways, you don't have the highways, you don't have the aviation connections to be able to exchange goods amongst yourselves, it amounts to naught. And that's why the investment in railways, in ports, in highways and others is very timely. And I think we must take advantage of that. In Ghana, we have expanded our port, and it's become a hub for receiving some of the biggest ships into our port, because we have a deep draft of almost 16 meters. And so once we receive containers bound for any country from Namibia, Angola, Cameroon, all the way to Dakar, we can redistribute. And that means that we can also distribute any products that we have to export to all these other ports. And so that's positioning ourselves to be able to trade more with our colleague African countries.
Thank you very much, President Mahama. But let's also talk about value addition. Everyone in this room likes chocolate. I believe everybody does. But what I do know, and what we do know, is that other than Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, the largest producers of chocolate in the world, both countries only occupy a very, very small portion of the finished goods in terms of cocoa. What is it that your country, in conjunction with Cote d'Ivoire, can do, for example, to increase the level at where you're operating in the value chain globally?
That's why sometimes you notice that the world economic order is rigged against Africa. We can increase processing overnight, but you have non-tariff barriers in exporting into some of the markets. Unless they bring a processor from outside, from Europe, who comes and sets up a processing plant and gets all the regulatory things in place. I mean, an indigenous person setting up a processing plant sometimes has a very big difficulty exporting finished products into the EU market and into the American market. But I must say that we've made progress from a low of about 25% processed cocoa Ghana has risen to about 40%, and I know Cote d'Ivoire is ahead of us. Cote d'Ivoire has done 50%, which is commendable. And so 50% of Cote d'Ivoire's cocoa is processed domestically. Ghana is at 40%. We hope that over the next 4 or 5 years, we'll reach the stage of Cote d'Ivoire at 50% and push even further.
Thank you very much, President Mahama. We'll go next to Vice President Mpango. Your country has invested tremendously in infrastructure in the last few years, particularly in the area of transport infrastructure. You're expanding regional connectivity and trade. How is Tanzania mobilizing capital to achieve these very, very ambitious dreams that President Samia Suluhu has? And what role is the African Development Bank playing in that regard? Huge dreams, huge ambitions. How are you dealing with that?
Well, thank you very much. First, I wish to thank the government and the people of Cote d'Ivoire for a very warm welcome. Indeed, we really feel at home. Thank you very much. Straight to your question, indeed for us, infrastructure is really critical for the radical economic transformation that we are pursuing. The challenge is, of course, that infrastructure is very expensive. And therefore, we have had to work very hard to mobilize financing to put up the railways. We are doing a standard gauge railway that will connect us to neighboring Burundi and DRC. We are also doing major roads that will connect us to our neighbors so that we are able to trade among ourselves. But for that to be done, we know very well that the terrain globally in terms of financing opportunities is not very good. The interest rates are very high in the capital market. And so we have had to, one, focus on how best we harness the private sector. How do we do that? We are deepening domestic capital markets. So, for example, we have issued the Samia infrastructure bond. We have done another bond to extend water in one of our local authorities in Tanga. We have done several green bonds, and this has helped us to mobilize financing internally. But not only that, we are also using pension fund resources to build bridges in Dar es Salaam and other towns, and we have found that quite helpful. But importantly also, we have put more energy in terms of improving our own tax administration, and particularly leveraging new technology. So we have electronic fiscal devices instead of relying on the human hand in collecting taxes. But we have also introduced a more efficient system of looking at the tax complaints from our taxpayers. So we introduced a tax ombudsman office in order that our taxpayers can raise grievances, if any, that they have against the tax authorities. But thirdly, I think very important, we have continued to mobilize external finance in terms of loans and grants. And here, the power of the African Development Bank has been extremely useful to us. We have used this leveraging power to mobilize finances for the standard gauge railway, for building our airports, for building our roads, and that way we have been doing quite well. But let me wind up with just one caution. In mobilizing external resources in particular, it is very important that we keep an eye on debt sustainability so that you avoid the risk of falling into the debt trap once again. So always keep an eye on ensuring that we don't go back to being a debt-distressed country. Thank you.
Very good cautionary words, Vice President Mpango. I just want to appeal to us in the hall. There seems to be a whole lot of noise in the back. Please, let's extend courtesies to the excellencies on the platform. Keep your voices down, and if you do need to speak, please go out of the hall. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Victor. On va parler d'un autre moyen de...
Let us talk about another way to boost economic growth. I'm going to share some figures with you concerning Niger. Niger's GDP growth should reach 7.4% in 2025, thanks to oil production estimated at 30 million barrels. These are impressive figures. Mr. Prime Minister, how does your government intend to ensure that oil revenue will be used effectively so as to boost sustainable economic development, which is truly sustainable, in a bid to reduce poverty in Niger? Thank you very much. Allow me to start by acknowledging the wonderful performances and achievements by President Adesina this last decade at the African Development Bank Group. He said, thanks to the boards that supported him and countries that supported him, he was able to achieve this. He also said this was possible thanks to his spouse, and I would like to extend my regards to her. Let me continue by noting that Niger's growth rate is quite important, and we should grant Niger the possibility to continue its exploration. Niger, with two other countries of the AES, are jointly facing terrorism. Yesterday we were hit by terrorists, and my thoughts go to the victims. It is quite unjust. We have huge potential, not just oil. We have uranium, which we seized from the hands of those who had been exploring it for about 60 years. We have solar energy. We are a big country, and we have sun all year round. We also have coal, and it is the highest concentrated zone in West Africa, as well as other gas resources. To answer your question, the head of state of Niger, General Tiani, who has been at the helm of the state for the past 22 months, almost 23 months, has shown determination, and that is to explore and manage the natural resources in the best way possible, and by doing so with integrity. Back to the bank's president, beyond all of what had been mentioned, I would like to quickly remind us about the high fives. How to light up Africa. We have all of these resources which I've listed. How to feed Africa. 1 million, more than 1 million square kilometers, as well as rich soils. The AFDB is funding one of our major projects called the Kandaji project, and is going to produce power in Niger as well as farming areas so as to boost production in cereals for Niger. It's also going to help regenerate the ecosystem. On industrialization, for the last 22 months, we've tried to revive dormant industrial units so as to boost rice production. We've always noted in Niger that it's impossible to produce rice away from the river area, but we've been able to do so this year in the southern eastern zones in our country, and so it helps to cover the needs of people living in those zones or in those areas. The bank is funding the Trans-Saharan Highway, which cuts through Chad and gets to Niger. It's a major project. We have connectivity. And on human development, we took bold steps. You know, for us, oil needs to serve Niger first. And so the decision was to drop oil prices to ensure that it is accessible to all. We've taken measures on the health, regarding health, so as to provide health for the population, as well as education to be made available to youth. And so this is what I can say. We are working to ensure that growth is available for all. Thank you very much for sharing these initiatives with us. We see that these are not just dreams, but talking about costly living, efforts have been made to ensure sustainable development. We're talking about the wealth of Africa. President Assoumani, the diaspora of the Comoros is a strong economic force for your country. Remittances account for about 20% of the GDP in your country, in addition to, well, far beyond official development assistance. So what strategies are in place to ensure that these contributions from the diaspora are translated into concrete projects which are beneficial for the country? Thank you for this important question. You are right, madam. The diaspora of the Comoros represents about 50% of the population. Our population is approximately 800,000 inhabitants, and in the diaspora we have more than 350,000. And so it is a huge chunk of the entire population of the Comoros. We stand proud of our diaspora. Those living in France or elsewhere always think about their country. No matter how long they are away, they are full patriots at heart. Wherever they are, they think about their country. It is true. We had things in the past, but you've mentioned that we need to capitalize on these remittances, which stands above official development assistance. And it is approximately 320 million euros on a yearly basis. And so we need to draw benefits from this. So first, these remittances have ensured that we never face hunger issues or famine crisis in the Comoros, thank God. And so our aim is to ensure that we have commodities for us to have consistent consumption, and so diaspora helps in this regard. This contributes to growing our economy. In addition, the diaspora of the Comoros needs to invest in the country to ensure that the country remains self-sufficient and to ensure that we are able to cater for our needs. In addition, our brothers and sisters in the diaspora living in France and who wish to visit the country or return to the country, they should be able to feel comfortable when they arrive and continue living. We know that at the moment we have extremism in these countries abroad, and so the diaspora might be tempted to return to the country. So we need to ensure that once they step foot in the country, they are able to feel comfortable back at home. As such, we have two challenges. First, with remittances, how do we ease transfer of finances? And so the Central Bank of the Comoros is working in this regard. I spoke with President Adesina how we can ensure that these money transfers are made easy and speedy, and for the funds not to remain stuck or lost in the air. And so we need to ensure that mechanisms are in place, and the most important mechanism is investment. How do we ensure that the diaspora transferring their money can proceed with investing in the country? We are a country where there are huge opportunities when talking about investments. Much is left to be done. We have road infrastructure. We have development as a whole. You have all spoken upstage here about transformation, and Africa has huge potential. Unfortunately, we proceed with crude exports and we gain nothing. However, we can process or transform on the spot. In 10 years, need I say 20 years, Africa will be the top market. Before exporting, we shall consume. And so we would have the capacity to consume, to transform, to export. Let us also encourage investors coming to our country because they have the capacity to invest. In addition, we should think about labor force. We could have investors coming in, and we should ensure that there are opportunities for everyone and we have qualified labor when people come to invest. In all African countries, it's important to note that we have a huge youth population, estimated at about 60% of the population. So the youths are there, and they can become our qualified labor force and make good progress. This is in the Sahel countries and all of our countries in Africa. We should ensure that these youths are not swayed away by terrorism. We should ensure that the money from the diaspora is put to good use, because our diaspora send their children to visit and live in the country. So it is important for them to feel safe when they come to the country. Among the flagship projects for the countries emergent by 2030, we have training and health. So we're focusing on training for the youth to gain skills and to be busy. As such, we are at peace. They can work during the day. In the evening, they get back to their homes, they're with their families, and the next day they go back to work. If they are not trained, then they can do this. We also have another issue with immigration. We don't talk much about this. If these youths are trained, they will stay at home. And so what I can say is we have a patriotic diaspora. We thank them immensely for what they are doing, but we need to also capitalize on remittances, again, which stands above official development assistance. However, we can spare the rod and spoil the child. Even if the diaspora gives us much money, we still make a plea to the AFDB to continue its financial support. Our bank, the AFDB, is the second major support, and we hope next year is going to go beyond the World Bank as our major partner. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
It's quite rare to find a president who's also the chief marketing officer of the nation. And we just want to thank you, President Assoumani, for your passion. And if you're an investor in the House today, after these annual meetings, if I were you, I'd be knocking on the door of the Comoros. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. My next question comes to President Mahama.
Bienvenue.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Excellency.
You're welcome.
Next question is to President Mahama. Earlier, Vice President Mpango cautioned, and very wisely so, about the need for debt sustainability. And Ghana in particular seems to have done very well in restructuring its high levels of public debt. But since you've come into office, what specifically are you doing to return Ghana to a much more acceptable and sustainable debt path?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, it's history. Everybody knows now that Ghana defaulted on its debt. We engaged in a painful debt exchange program to restructure our debts and to bring debt to GDP to a range of about 55 to 58% by 2028. The debt restructuring was concluded early this year with our bilateral creditors, and therefore it brought, one, the quantum of debt down, that's the size, but it also stretched out the repayment of the debt. That brought us down to about 75, 76% debt to GDP. Since then, we're left with just 3% of the debt. We've covered 97%. It's left with the commercial creditors who hold just about 3% of the debt. And once we do that, then it means that the whole debt restructuring has been completed. But like I said when I spoke at first, I said we need to put any credit that we take or any debt that we take into the most productive parts of our economy in providing infrastructure so that you can have a rate of return on debt. You must do smart borrowing, taking debt where you can create debt escrows so that the income for which you invested the credit can go to repay. For instance, I mean, expressways that are tolled, where the toll revenues are escrowed so that they go to pay the expressway in 25 years or so. I think that these are the kinds of things that we should do. There are many examples. For instance, we built a first-class port, and that, again, did not sit on our public debt. We made our Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority and their partners, Meridian Port Services, build the ports, which cost us about $1 billion, and that port is paying for itself, and that debt does not sit on our books. We built a new airport terminal we call Terminal 3, and again, we built it on the balance sheet of the Ghana Airports Company Limited. And so that project is paying for itself without sitting on our public debt. And so these are some of the innovative ideas that we need to introduce in order that our debts continue to be sustainable. But also, increasingly, one of the push factors for the debt is the strength of the value of the local currency. Our debt continued to multiply because the cedi continued to grow weaker. And so you needed more cedis. Because our public debt is stated in cedis, the weaker the cedi becomes against the foreign currencies, the higher it pushes up your debt. Fortunately, I mean, some measures we put in place have recently begun to show results, and the cedi has been strengthening. And so we've reduced our total debt over the last 5 months by almost 150 billion cedis, which is very significant. And so if that trajectory continues, the target of reaching 55 to 58% debt sustainability by 2028 will be reached by the end of this year. And that means that it gives us fiscal space to begin to invest in the most productive sectors of the economy. But like I said, we need to look inward, boost domestic revenue, cut wasteful government expenditure, fight corruption, and introduce better accountability in governance. And that is what the focus of my administration is.
Thank you very much, President Mahama. Very, very well said. I'm going to pivot back to Vice President Mpango once again. Tanzania in particular has shown great ambition with its $12.9 billion energy compact to expand clean and inclusive energy access by 2030. And Tanzania was the host of the Mission 300 summit, which was highly successful just in January. How is your government positioning itself to lead regional energy integration?
Well, thank you. The first thing that we have done has been to make huge investments in the production of energy. So we embarked on a very ambitious project on one of our major rivers, and we have now finished construction of a hydropower plant, which now produces 2,115 megawatts. But aside that, we are investing in other projects, particularly to utilize our natural gas reserves, which are estimated at around 57 trillion cubic feet. And at the moment, actually, that's the main source of power. So we are diversifying our power sources also. But in addition, we have continued to invest in other hydro projects around the country. We are also doing a program to harness our potential in what do we call it now? Geothermal.
Yes.
We have a geothermal potential in several of our regions, and we have now started working on one which will produce about 500 megawatts. So that's on the production side. But we are also investing in the transmission so that we are able to hook into regional interpower connectors in order to be able to link up to neighboring Kenya, Zambia as well, Malawi. And this is very critical if we are positioned to position Tanzania to be able to be the main hub of power transmission. And
Mr. Vice President, if I could just ask, I mean, Mission 300 was a huge event put together by the African Development Bank, the World Bank, as well as with strong support from Tanzania. What has happened since then? What are the major gains that you've seen since then in this regard, particularly with regards to the ambitious plans that you do have? What are the significant things that have happened since January?
Well, since January, it's not a very long time.
I know.
But one, we have been able to lock in financial support, again, to ensure that we deal with the critical constraints which would allow us to be able to sell power to our neighbors, but also in case in some regions where we have not yet finalized the transmission infrastructure, we are able to connect, for example, to Ethiopian power. So it's not a very long time.
I know, but just as with other excellencies on the platform, I know you're all moving at the speed of light, and we wish you good success with this. I've gotten a signal that we're coming to the end of this session, so I think, Marie-Angèle, you have one last question for His Excellency, the Prime Minister of Niger, and then we'll come to a more general question to close out.
Mr. Prime Minister, in fact, I have a question for you. You talked about the high five, and you talked about Niger, about their assets. You said you have sunlight throughout the year. So sometimes our strength can be transformed into weaknesses. We're talking about raw materials, but we don't have to wait for food self-sufficient, be able to feed Nigerians. Let me talk about Niger Food in partnership with Group Dangote, the Dangote Group. To what measures are you taking to ensure the success of this initiative, and how would this contribute to food security and economic progress in Niger? Food self-sufficiency in Niger. For about 20 months, we have an operation which is called Grande Irrigation. You have 8 regions in Niger, and each of them, the head of state have decided that they will deal with all the small watershed. So it made it possible to come up with production, and this is the first time for 60 years that where we have not had any need to ask for assistance or to practice sales at lower prices, which means that initiative of the people of Niger is a reality in itself. The second important part about energy, Niger has made an effort to be part of the countries which will benefit from this M300 initiative. We are trying to use it as much as possible to reverse the trend. You know, before there was a power change in 2023, we were importing more than 70% of our energy products. At the point I'm talking, it's less than 30%, and when we're going to include the M300 initiative, we'll be able to cover
all our needs. So this is a fundamental issue which will come and support agricultural production in Niger. Our ambition is not only that we should cover all our needs in 2-3 years, but we should be able to have a surplus that we can export. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Let me, before the last round, let me add something. You're talking about the African Development Fund, the bank group. It supported and continued to support your countries. We are at a time when we are rebuilding the replenishment of the fund. I want to know how you are working with the country and what you can say to President Adesina showed the way. He ensured that the African continent, and in particular, it is a determination for all Pan-Africanists in how we mobilize resources domestically to be able to support what is doing a lot for our economies. The Niger decided to provide $1 million in that fund. 1 million, yeah. We'll do it and we hope that in a few years the African Development Fund would not need to be financed by non-African countries. We thank all those who are contributing now. We need their contribution. But let me look at the theme for this year, making Africa's capital work better for Africa's development. When we talk about this youth, when we talk about the population, it is a very important asset, and we have everything that we need. All we need to do is reorganize and we ensure that we have good management and good leadership, and that we should have peace. We should be allowed to manage our resources ourselves, and we will not need unnecessary presence on our continent. Thank you.
Much appreciated. We're just coming to the close of this session in just a few moments, but I'd be very remiss if I didn't ask all of you, Your Excellencies, this last question, and I just want to give you probably about 2 minutes each to respond. This annual meetings in particular has a very special dimension, as it marks, one, the election of a new president, and it also marks the end of a 10-year term, a remarkable 10 years of leadership by the president of the bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, a decade that saw him launch the high fives. I remember at the time a lot of people thought, well, what's the high five? But the brilliance of what he did was to simplify and synthesize complexity and make it something that was much more easily manageable. He's been known to be called Africa's optimist in chief. He doesn't see an obstacle that he thinks is impossible to overcome. And as leaders, each one of you have dealt with him and worked with him and vice versa over the years. What's your take on Dr. Adesina as you look back over his stewardship of the bank over the last 10 years? Just 2 minutes each. Just share your perspectives with us in this regard. We'll start with President Assoumani first, and then we'll go on in that order. Thank you very much, Your Excellencies.
I'm going to be brief because you're not that aware. He's a brother, and during these 10 years, I came to power in 2016, but I did everything to assist him to ensure that the bank should be a reliable institution. So we did advocacy, did everything to ask them to, because the ADB has a financing mechanism which is more accessible. So I continue to congratulate him. All our wishes and prayers is that whoever is replacing him should be able to take over and if he is still there to direct the person, to assist the person. I wonder why Mr. Adesina should not be an advisor behind the scenes to his successor. You should be a discreet advisor, because the ADB is a source of pride to Africa, and what the bank is doing for Africa is more than all the other institutions. It's all in our interest that we should ensure that the bank has the financial and human means to be able to work for the benefit of Africa. Thank you.
President Mahama.
Let me call him Akin, because Akin and Grace have become quite close friends of Lordina and I, and so we are family friends. But I first noticed him when I was president, and President Goodluck Jonathan, my friend, was president of Nigeria. At the time, Akin was Minister of Agriculture, and he was transforming Nigeria's agriculture at a very accelerated pace. He had come out with digital solutions for distributing subsidies, fertilizers, and all that. And it was something Ghana was grappling with, and so I took a special interest in what he was doing to try and copy what he was doing in Ghana. And so in 2016, when the election for AFDB came up, and he was the candidate, I became his chief campaigner. Something happened at the time. President Goodluck Jonathan had nominated him, and Ghana was strongly supporting him. And then government changed in Nigeria. And sometimes when government changes in our part of the world, sometimes, oh, this guy was part of the last government, so we don't support him. So I became his chief advocate to convince President Buhari that his choice was not that of Nigeria, it was a choice of all of us. And the rest is history. He won. And everybody can see that we made the right decision. I don't regret that we supported him strongly. And I think because of the background he had in agriculture, in many of our countries, some of the poorest people are farmers. And considering that he worked with farmers, he understood what poverty was all about. He understood that farmers needed power to irrigate their crops and so on and so forth. So he came to the bank with quite a lot of experience. And there's one thing I thank God for. His father sent him abroad to study medicine, and he decided to study agriculture. And Adesina is who he is because of his understanding of agriculture and how it is important for countries to feed themselves. So in all the documentaries that I saw, for me, the most important thing was moving that number of families out of hunger and increasing Africa's food production by 44 million tons. That's significant. And so we are happy with the work he's done. He's introduced the special agri-processing zones, which we're about to start in Ghana. And the first thing any leader, any president owes his people is to make sure that you put food on the table and that they have enough food to eat. He set a very high standard. The bar is very high. And I'm hoping that whoever succeeds him will not only be able to attain the bar that he has set, but be able to push it beyond. And so thank you very much, Akin.
Thank you very much, President Mahama. Next, Vice President Mpango.
Well, when my brother, Dr. Adesina, came into office, Tanzania was getting support from ADB to the tune of $1.6 billion. Currently, it has soared up to $3.54 billion. So thank you very much. Everywhere we go in Tanzania, we can literally name several projects by his name. I have come to understand that in Yoruba, Akinwumi is someone who spreads joy and happiness. And therefore, I really want to commend the Yoruba people because they were spot on in choosing his name. Because the names not only have a meaning, they actually shape a person. So I really want to say without prejudice. Additional that I have known since I was Minister of Finance and Governor of the AFDB board is a true African son of the soil, very devoted to a bright Africa, where the sun of prosperity shines 24/7. We thank you very much for what you have done for the continent. We wish you and your family a prosperous life. I think you are too young to retire, and I hope Africa will continue to use you and depend on you. And finally, I just want to reveal that consultations are underway back in Tanzania so that we name one of the prominent roads in Dar es Salaam or Zanzibar or Dodoma in your name in appreciation of the immense contribution to the development of Tanzania for the past 10 years. We wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vice President Mpango, and congratulations, Dr. Adesina. Your Yoruba translation is actually perfect, Mr. Vice President. Akinwumi is certainly somebody who spreads joy around. But in addition to that, the word Akin means warrior. And one of the things that I believe has typified the life of Dr. Adesina is that for all of his career, he's been a warrior against poverty and injustice. So to that, we say a big amen to your wishes. We'll come last, but certainly not the least, to Prime Minister Lamine.
Monsieur le Premier Ministre.
Your Excellency, is not the Prime Minister who will be talking, he's a former staff member. Permit me to talk as a former staff member. President Adesina found me or met me here in Abidjan. We finalized the return of the African Development Bank from its temporary office in Tunis to the head office here. The person, Mr. Kabiriko, that he succeeded, that I would like to recognize. I was sent to Gabon soon after, and we needed to provide budget support to Gabon. At the board, many members were not for it. Mr. Adesina did the honor of calling on me, and he said, why are you defending the assistance of 500 million to Gabon? I told him that in its budgetary provisions, that country had put aside over $100 a barrel, and it had fallen that year to $29. So he said, I've understood everything, and he hung up, and he is the one who defended that budgetary support in Gabon. That's the first thing I remember about him. He sent me to Chad subsequently, where after a number of challenges, he asked me to act. President Deby called him to say, I thought that the person who you sent to act should remain here. He said, well and good, but he has a mission. First of all, he should follow up the completion of the bridge on Logon, and that the major infrastructure project of connection between Cameroon and Chad should be completed. Though that's a project that was supposed to produce energy, transport it, and distribute it. And there was also the issue of the budgetary assistance to Chad, and half of the members of the board were against it, saying that Chad had spent all its money on weapons. President Adesina called me. He said, explain to me, why should we support the budget? And I just simply told him that that country used over $1 billion to ensure its security, to ensure the security of the bordering Congres, Niger, Nigeria, Niger, and even Mali, Cameroon. And he said, I've understood you very well. He dropped the phone and he defended that these are things that cannot be forgotten. And today I was very pleased to note that a few weeks ago that bridge became a reality. He is the one who initiated it, and before he left he inaugurated it. That's a bridge between two countries. It took hours and days to cross it, but today in a few minutes you are through. Thank you, Mr. President. I wish you all the best, and I think that I can tell you that you will certainly not have time to sleep.
Brings us almost to the close of our session, but we just want to say a very big thank you to Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, to his staff, to management, to the board, and to the Board of Governors for the excellent work done over the last 10 years. Truly transformative. We wish you all the very best, and again we say congratulations. For our panelists here today, His Excellency Azali Assoumani, President and Chief Marketing Officer of the Union of Comoros, His Excellency Mr. John Mahama, President and CEO of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Dr. Philip Isidore Mpango, Vice President, United Republic of Tanzania, ably representing Her Excellency Mrs. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania, and a transformative one for that matter, and His Excellency Ali Mahaman Lamine, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Niger. Your Excellencies, we're truly grateful. We want to sincerely say a very big thank you for gracing this platform with your presence, providing ideas, and again, putting wind behind the sails of the African Development Bank. Before we close, I just want to say very quickly, there's a very important event taking place at 6:30 this evening. It's one of the marquee events of the bank, the financial presentation at 6:30 and the launch of the African Development Effectiveness Report, ADER, which will take place in the Salle des Fêtes Hall this evening. I believe it's going to be a packed event. It's extremely important. We look forward to seeing you. Once again, before we close, graciously, kindly give a very warm thanks to our distinguished excellencies for a wonderful session. Once again, we say a very big thank you. Excellence.
Thank you very much.